Anyone who's ever worked in customer support knows this feeling, right? You've got requests flying in from everywhere, and trying to keep it all straight feels, well, like chaos. But what if you could actually bring some order to all that noise? Today, we're diving into a project that set out to do just that. This is a headache that pretty much every business deals with. When your support requests are all over the place, it's not just messy, it's almost impossible to track what's going on and make sure your customers are actually getting the help they need. And that exact problem is what we're going to unpack today. So how do you take this jumble of messages and turn it into, well, a solution? In this case, it didn't start in some big corporate meeting. It started as a university project, born from some very real, everyday frustration. So the story behind this project, which is called ServiceIT, actually comes straight from the creator's day job. Bruno Kappi de Matos was working at an industrial automation company and saw it firsthand. Support requests coming in through WhatsApp, emails, phone calls. It was making it incredibly difficult to manage anything or measure how well they were doing. And all that on-the-job chaos was boiled down to one really clear question that became the guiding star for the whole project. How can we build a system to better manage support tickets and track the metrics that actually matter? Okay, so the problem was clear, but how do you actually tackle it? Well, the project took shape in an academic environment, which brought the kind of structure and discipline needed to go from just an idea to a real executed plan. All right, so here are the key details. The project was the brainchild of Bruno Kappi de Matos for his final project at Unicinos back in 2022. And the goal, while it sounds simple, was pretty ambitious. Build a web app to manage the entire lifecycle of a support ticket, from start to finish. It's one thing to have a great idea, right? But turning it into a real, working application, that takes a plan. A really solid, step-by-step approach was key here. And they followed this really logical 6-step roadmap. It all started with research, picking the right tools for the job. Then they mapped out exactly what the system needed to do. After that, it was time to build. First the front end, then the back end, and then came the most important part, getting it into the hands of real users for testing and feedback, which all led to the final analysis. Okay, let's geek out for a second on the tech stack, because it's pretty cool and super modern. For the front end, that's everything the user sees and clicks on. They used React, which is fantastic for building smooth, interactive experiences. The back end, kind of the brains of the whole operation, was built with Node.js. And for all the heavy lifting, like user accounts, database, and file storage, they used Google's Firebase. Then they put it all online with Netlify. So after all that research, planning, and coding, what did they actually build? Let's take a look at ServiceIT and see what it's all about. What's really smart about this system is that it's built for two different types of people. On one hand, you've got the client, the person who needs help. They can log in, create a new ticket, and see exactly what's happening with their request. And on the other hand, you have the support provider, who gets a whole suite of tools to manage every ticket, assign tasks, and set up the system. And check this out. This is a huge deal today. The app is fully responsive. Remember how we talked about requests coming in from WhatsApp? Well, this design means that whether you're a support agent on a big desktop computer or a client checking a ticket on your phone, the experience is perfect. It just works, no matter the screen size. And here it is. This is the command center. For any support team, this dashboard is basically your new best friend. It gives you a clean, simple view of every single open ticket. You can filter, you can sort, you can find whatever you need in seconds. It is literally the opposite of that chaotic mess of emails and random messages. Okay, so the app looks slick, but does it actually help real people? That's the million-dollar question, right? To find out, ServiceIT was put in front of actual users, and honestly, their feedback was everything. And right away, the user testing revealed something fascinating. Get this, 1/3 of the testers worked for companies that don't have any kind of dedicated ticket system. They're just winging it. That just goes to show you there's a huge opportunity for a tool like ServiceIT to step in and help. So what did they actually think about the tool? Well, the numbers here really speak for themselves. The feedback on how useful it was just fantastic. The overwhelming majority of people gave it a 9 or a 10 out of 10. That's a huge thumbs up. And that positive vibe wasn't just one-sided. It worked for everyone involved. Over 90% of the testers said the system was very helpful from the support team's point of view, and just as important, they said the same thing from the client's perspective. It was a win-win. The best kind of feedback isn't just a pat on the back, right? It's about what comes next. And the users gave a super clear list of ideas for the future. Things like custom colors, being able to get SMS or email alerts, and even building a dedicated mobile app. That's a great roadmap for version 2.0. All right, so let's zoom out. What's the big takeaway from the ServiceIT story? Well, it's way more than just a cool piece of software. It's really a proof of concept that has some pretty big implications.
I love this quote from the final project report. It just hits the nail on the head. After all the research and testing, the conclusion was clear. If this thing was a real product on the market, people would absolutely use it.
So in the end, ServiceIT absolutely nailed it. It started with a real-world problem we can all relate to, used a smart process to build a solution, and then proved that solution had real value. It's just a perfect example of how an idea from a student project can solve an actual business problem. And that really leaves us with one final thought, one question for you. This whole project started by looking at a common frustration and just asking, hey, could we do this better? So it makes you wonder, right? What's that little problem in your daily routine that, with a bit of fresh thinking, could be the next great solution?